I'm with John Jekovich going over his book, Their Mother's Son. We're in the middle of chapter 13 on page 368, Renee, Tripe, and Etampes. We're on middle of chapter 13 on page 368, Renee, Tripe, and Etampes. What's your dog tag number?
42925.
Great. Here we go, in the middle where we left off a few days ago. The rooms themselves were pretty much the same, with the exception of several that were more elegant in the furnishings and decor. After reveille and breakfast the next morning, I was looking forward to seeing Renee again. While waiting for the time our passes would be issued, I studied the city guide of Paris issued for each of us. I would be taking a metro from Paris, and it was imperative I understood where I was going, as my French was limited and non-existent. I confirmed with the English-speaking tour guide stationed at the hospital and was informed of the exact route to the lake. I was to obtain the metro here at Etampes, boarding a train for the station number 4 in Paris, and from there it was suggested that I take a taxi to my final destination. A little after 1200 hours, I left the hospital confines and walked several blocks to the metro station. Upon arriving there, I went up to one of the several ticket windows and asked for a boarding ticket to station number 4, holding up 4 fingers, not trusting my French. The female ticket agent quickly understood and gave me the ticket. I blurted out, "CSD Kumaya," in the worst French imaginable, and the agent smiled in bewilderment, and I repeated, much slower this time, and she understood with a big smile. "Non, non," she repeated. I looked at her in wonderment. I was completely dumbfounded at what she was attempting to convey to me. Finally, in desperation, she pointed to my uniform and kept on repeating, "Non, non." So apparently, because you're in uniform, you didn't have to pay for the tickets.
Yeah.
Okay, that was good. I finally got her descriptive message. People in uniform ride the metro free. I was thanked and exclaimed, "Mercy, mercy." The train left the station shortly thereafter, and in about 20 minutes I was at the metro station number 4, distinguished by an illuminated orange circular sign bearing the line terminus. Another illuminated blue sign marked the sortie and station exit. I got a taxi at the station exit and directed the driver to 5 Rue Street, Andre. I was hoping he would understand me. To my surprise, he spoke rather good English and replied, "Sure, Joe, too sweet." And in no time, I was in front of Renee's house once again. I paid the driver plus a small tip and alighted the taxi. I began a little apprehensive, coming unannounced and so early in the day. Before I reached the large oaken door, Renee thrust it open and shouted, "Bonjour, bonjour." There her arms were about me and started kissing me. The fragrance of her body enraptured me, and I felt as I was a welcome friend returning home. She had on only a short sleeve pullover knitted sweater and a pair of slacks. Her hair was flounced about in a disheveled manner, and there were smudges of various colors of paint on her sweater and slacks. I noticed her hands were spotted with paint, and she had an air of complete uncertainty regarding her appearance. I thought she was captivating and elegant, her radiance and charm penetrating through, no matter how she was attired. "I am painting right now," she said, taking my hand and leading me up to the second floor. Upon entering the large open room, I saw a young girl about 10 or 11 sitting in front of the easel with her tiny hands folded on her lap. I noticed an older person, probably the mother, sitting close by. So is that how Renee made her living, is by painting people, portraits? Yeah. So she made a good living that way then, huh? The canvas was partially completed. It looked very professional and was a true likeness of the young girl. I said I was sorry to be intruding and that I would be back later. Renee understood my reluctance, but had none of it. She told me to look around the studio, that she would be finished in a very short while. I walked about. The portraits and paintings of German military caught my attention once again. Here were several of the 5th Parachute Division, their blue tunics under their white camouflage coveralls. It brought back memories of Wiltz and Fink. There were several excellent painters of the armor half-tracks with portable flamethrowers mounted on them, including many paintings of Panzer and Tigers, both 4s and 5s. There were also individual portraits of soldiers of the 2nd Panzer Division, both officers and enlisted men. Also many varied paintings of Wehrmacht standing in front of the Eiffel Tower and other tourist spots. They were all excellent paintings, lifelike and truly a worthwhile collection. Even though I admired their quality and authenticity, I felt a pang of resentment and irritability at being here, and even more that Renee had painted them. I believe that the Germans were our common enemy and that they deserved harsher treatment than there was displayed here.
You too. Take care. Thank you.
Renee had said goodbye to her sitter and her mother. Turning towards me, she smiled and said, "I knew you would come today," all the while gesturing and mouthing her words with her lips to make it more understandable to me. The movements of her lips were sensuous and once again under her bewitching charm. I smiled, took her hand, and noted the paint accumulated under her lovely nails. Still was rapturous. I thought no matter how much paint was on her and how jumbled her appearance, she brought my hand up to her lips, kissed it gently, and murmured softly that she would change and then we would go get some lunch. As I waited for her in the parlor, the paintings of the Germans were still lingered in my mind and bothered me immensely.
What was bothering you?
As I waited for her in the parlor, the paintings of the Germans still lingered in my mind and bothered me immensely.
Yeah, she was an informer. They killed her.
How many paintings did she have of Germans?
A lot. That's all she did.
She must have a lot.
There was no Americans.
There was no Americans.
No Americans at all.
But by that time, the Germans had moved out of the area, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were at home there.
Okay.
Until they got wise to her.
Okay, they got wise to her. I wanted to confront Ray with myself being perturbed, but thought better of it, and I decided to wait for a more opportune time. I'm sure she was have a plausible and well-founded reason for painting the many portraits I saw throughout the room. She returned in short order, with all the paint removed and looking enchanting. She had changed into a short black skirt and was cool inside outside, wearing a heavy type sweater jacket with a large collar, which emphasized her vivacious figure. Her hair was swept back into a bun, and I marveled how she could attain such a transformation in such a short period. She said it would be only a short walk from Rue Street where there were many restaurants to choose from. As we walked, she took my arm and held it tightly to her side, lacing her fingers into mine. She smiled as I pressed her fingers tightly against mine. She said something in French which I did not understand, and she would not tell me. We arrived at a quaint and cozy place called a Lacombe. As we sat at a circular table, a white-aproned waiter scribbled our order onto the paper tablecloth and returned almost immediately with what Renee had ordered. Ray had ordered plats du jour, plates of the day, which consisted of steak and chitlings sausage, served with French fries and a carafe of wine, house wine. It was all very delicious, and I complimented Renee on her selection and the place to eat. As we sat drinking our second carafe of wine, I told Renee about Etampes and how long I'd be there. She listened attentively, fingering her wine glass and sipping it occasionally. I also stated that my pass was good until after midnight, and she was pleased that we would not have to rush back anymore. She pressed my hand and exclaimed, "Let's go dancing at one of the bistros." I nodded in agreement, aware of my dancing ability. As she spoke, I noted how much better her English was and how well she understood what I said. It was only when I spoke rapidly, which I had a bad habit of doing, that she became frustrated. She became frustrated when she did not understand. We sat there as I listened to her tell of her plans for the next several weeks. I was completely engrossed with her conversation and the movement of her lips and facial expressions. She said her sensual hands would move in her direct relationship to her mouth and lips, and it was fascinating and seductive to watch and be part of her little world. It was fortunate, for she relieved the tension that had built up inside me from the loss of Leip and others, and my feelings of responsibility for their deaths. It just occurred to me that I had not thought about Leip or Fink and the others these past few days. It was only when I was alone or when something triggered my memory that they were brought to mind. I came to the realization that much of my thoughts these past few weeks were regarding Renee and the many mysterious revelations that she presented. The paintings were one glaring manifestation of her complex nature. I knew I was attracted to her probably for very reasons. I wanted to be around her always and could not visualize my life without her. Was she what I thought, or was she there and I did not comprehend? Even so, I realized I was in uncharted waters regarding Renee, which made it all more alluring and enticing. I heard Renee say something about the Eiffel Tower, which brought me back to reality. I asked her to repeat what she said. We could go to the top of the Eiffel Tower, she repeated, a little annoyed at my inattention. I took her hand and folded the fingers under mine and sighed, I could never not pay attention to you. She thought for a moment, then smiled and put her hand to my cheek. We walked about the streets for some time, talking about all the bustle and street sounds. It was a buoyant, spirited section in Paris, and I would have never seen had I not been for Renee. We would stop and gaze into many of the varied shop windows. On occasion we would enter, and Renee and the shopkeeper would carry on an accelerated conversation of which I understood very little. There were open food markets which displayed an assortment of foods and delicacies, many of which I never seen before. Renee would explain their compositions, again, origin and taste. I would listen to her attentively as she pronounced her words in English. Several times during the day, I was conscious of my inner thoughts. I would miss her greatly in a few short weeks when I returned to my unit. This person that befriended me with her penchant for life and determination to seek it out. Yet her arcane subtlety gave me cause for concern. We stopped for a crepe at the street corner vendor, and I asked her if she was getting tired or cold. She laughed her delightful little chuckle and murmured that she was enjoying herself too much to be tired or feel the cold. I handed her a paper napkin. And held her hand momentarily. Our eyes met and they telegraphed a message of love and hope. She smiled and quickly looked away. We reached the sign and found a little sheltered park along its bank. We sat down at the solitary bench. I took her hand and asked her if she wanted to rest for a while. It was cool enough so that we did not sit too long without getting chilled. We snuggled close to me and crossed her legs. I put my arm around her as she rested her head on my shoulder. We kissed each other and she would, hey, hello. Come on in, Claire. Come on in, Claire. We have this reserved for you.
Yeah. Oh.
Hi, Claire. He's still in Paris. Still in the hospital in Paris recuperating. So that's where we're at.
Bored.
No, very nice. Okay, she snuggled close to me and crossed her legs. She was silent. Enough, she sighed softly, and while wiping her lipstick from my lips with her thumb, I put my hand across her legs and talked to her nicely. It's getting late and it's almost dark. We both got up hurriedly, walked out of the isolated park, and back into the busy thoroughfare with its jumble of people. I held her hand as we walked, and I sensed we had reached another plateau in our relationship. I had forgotten about the war and was brought back to reality of it by the partial blackout in effect in Paris. It was strange. I thought that they were under a partial blackout here, and they were much closer to the war than England was, yet the UK was completely blacked out at night. We stopped at the sidewalk cafe for some hot coffee, and it was refreshing to watch the people stroll by, the same time dwelling in our little world. Renee excused herself, went into the cafe, presumably to freshen up. I left momentarily to see our Latoys.
Hi, Claire.
There she is.
Yes, hi.
Would you like a water, Claire?
I'm fine.
Okay. Did you check the mail?
Not yet.
As she returned to our table, I gazed at her as she approached. She walked erect and confidently, displaying all of her beauty and charm. She smiled and sat down, slightly embarrassed at my staring at her. We will go to Bellagio's, she explained, before it gets too late. I suddenly thought of my past and sign in time. I looked at my watch. It was still early. With that, I took her hand, plugged some francs on the table for coffee, and drifted with her back into the crowded sidewalk. At this time, in the middle of war, you say the crowded sidewalk. How busy was it in Paris?
Sidewalk?
The stores, the shops?
Well, as long as there wasn't an alarm on, they could do it. They could walk around.
And so
Then if the alarm went off, they all scooted.
But until the sirens went off, they were trying their
When the
best
air raid sailors.
to run a normal life
Yeah.
until the alarms went off. Well, the streets that you were walking on, were many of them bombed out or many of them untouched?
Most of them were untouched. They were all cobblestone.
Okay. Okay. So it seemed like at many times business as usual. Okay. As we entered through the stained glass front door, the music of Glenn Miller was drifting from the small band and above the floor stage. Radiating out of the center stage was a circular dance floor with the overhead colored lights splashing and ricocheting off the floor. Beyond the dance floor were small rectangular covered tables with miniature upright brass table lamps in the center. Were the table lamps, were they electric or were those candle lit?
No, electrical.
Oh, wow. So Paris at this time was pretty much completely with AC, with electrical. We were ushered to the table beyond the first tier of tables, away from the dance floor. We were close enough to view the musicians as they played. It was strange to hear Glenn Miller music in this environment, away from the U.S. The waiter immediately came to our table, and Renee engaged in a rapid conversation. When Glenn Miller was playing, was there mostly American soldiers there, or primarily French prisoners?
No, there weren't many GIs there, no.
Okay, so let me try to understand this.
Everybody liked Glenn Miller.
French liked them just as much as Americans?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, and he's still popular today?
Yeah.
And he's still popular today?
They all had his records and everything.
Still popular today, yeah. Yeah. He returned shortly with a carafe of wine and a basket of bread fingers. As we munched the bread fingers, Renee asked if I would see her tomorrow. I teasingly asked if she wanted to see me again soon. She replied, frightfully in earnest, yes, and every day until you leave. I was touched by her sentiment and took her hand and held it. She had draped her bulky sweater over her back of her chair, which was revealing her. You're beautiful, I whispered as I watched her direct the waiter in a placing of the various dishes on our table. She smiled whenever she would look at my way, and she knew that I was watching her ever-enchanting move. I am thinking of how much I would miss this enduring, bewitching creature, that I would never have another opportunity such as this, and how I could not turn in a different direction from what fate had bestowed on me. We started off with a mixed raw salad, along with anchovies and chitlings, served with a small slice of French bread. How was the French bread? How was the French bread?
French bread is good, yeah.
Did you enjoy the anchovies?
Anchovies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was common to serve it?
They didn't know how to serve it.
That was pretty common there though, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. I wanted to ask if she had been here with any Germans, but resisted.
Oh, Jesus.
So you wanted to ask her, because she painted the portraits of many Germans, if she was ever here with any
Now, what'd
Germans.
she say?
No, but you resisted, and I didn't want to upset her in any way. So you thought about asking
But
her,
you didn't ask her.
but you didn't ask her.
How come you didn't want to ask her?
It was your thoughts. You said you were thinking about asking her if she sat here with any Germans, and you said, I better not. I did not want to upset her, so you never asked the question. Our waiter returned once again to pick up the empty salad plates and leave our main course. It consisted grilled pieces of lamb, which matchstick deep-fried potato strips, various sauces, and slightly sautéed vegetables, along with more bread and wine. I commended Renee on her selection, exclaiming that everything was delicious. So how did you like the lamb?
What?
How did you like the lamb?
The lime was good.
It was good. It was cooked the way you wanted it?
Yeah, it wasn't greasy or nothing. Limeys make it greasy.
Not the French?
Yeah.
Okay. So if the guys in UK, if the United Kingdom made the lamb, it'd be greasy. But if the guys in French made
Yeah,
it,
how they cook it, yeah, how they cook it, yeah.
it wouldn't be greasy.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm learning a lot here. As we ate
What are you giving me?
I'm giving you.
lamb, we're giving you lamb.
There, it's open.
Wait a minute. I can't be eating this stuff.
Come on. You want a sody pop?
Huh?
You want Dr. Pepper?
No.
Claire, you want Dr. Pepper? No. Okay. So that lamb. I commented on the food once again, and I could see that she was pleased that I commended her several times on her selection. I thought she wanted my praise and was pleased when I offered it. Then she would try to suppress it as if it did not matter. I knew the gamut very well. I used it on many occasions. As we waited for dessert, I mentioned that I would have to be back at the hospital a little bit after midnight. She thought that was terrible, but understood. I hinted that the French army probably did the same. Our dessert was half of a pear and a vanilla ice cream and a chocolate sauce. I wondered at the quality and variety of food served and marveled that it was available during a time of war. Renee suggested that most of it was grown in the country and was improvised in one way or the other. What did you mean by improvised one way or the other?
They make good use of it.
So they work with what they have.
Yeah.
Like that one sergeant told you, make the best of what you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then have muck.
Yeah, they improvise, that's good. After our dessert, she took my hand and said, "Dance with me." I hesitated and sheepishly stated that I was not good on the dance floor. "You did well the other day," she muttered as she guided me onto the dance floor. Luckily, we're playing a slow fox trot. It was quite easy to follow Renee. As I held her closely, feeling the intimacy of her presence, I kissed her softly on the cheek, and I followed her around the dance floor. We danced for several numbers that the small band played, and then we started to play the tango. They started to play the tango and the rumba. I took her hand and walked back to our table.